Are you a fan of brutalist architecture? Well, have I got a remote for you? Welcome to TVS, where you get multiple reviews for the price of one. Today, we're taking a look at the Apple TV 4K third generation. It's been out for a couple weeks, and we've been playing with it, so I guess let's get right into it. Mike, tell us about this device.
The Apple TV 4K third generation has a number of upgrades versus the previous generation, including an A15 Bionic chipset, 64 or 128 gigabytes of storage, Wi-Fi 6 connectivity. It also includes an HDMI and Ethernet port, SDR video with Dolby Vision, HDR10 Plus, and a bunch of other acronyms, and audio. Top quality audio options. Yeah, you want it, it's there. FLAC, AF, I don't know, maybe probably not something people abbreviate, but whatever. Dolby Digital, you can do it.
So the set-top box itself is very simple in design. It's non-discrete. It kind of disappears in next to or behind your television, and that's fine. I got no problem with that. The remote, on the other hand, it stands out. It's kind of industrial in design. It's kind of thick, and it fits my hand well. I feel like the button layout works well. I actually like the touchpad button. I found that to be actually halfway decent. And also, I was really happy to find that device in particular, the remote, charges over USB-C, something that I am very happy to see coming from Apple these days.
The design is fine. It's kind of that minimalist, as I mentioned earlier, brutalist, which is. I'm trying to think of the right way to put this. We'll start again. The device is fine in itself. It's minimalist. It's got kind of, as I mentioned earlier, that brutalist design to it, aesthetic. I was happy that they had an Ethernet version, although the additional $20 was kind of annoying if you don't necessarily care for the additional space. But the remote is probably the thing I hated the most about it. In our first look, we talked about how I was super confused by that touchpad. I was happy to figure out that you can turn it off, but it's just the size and the shape of the remote. It doesn't fit my hand. I can never manage to pick it up in the correct orientation in the dark. And the edges are so sharp you can cut paper.
All right. So for me, yeah, I thought it was a nice upgrade, right? Especially if you're coming from a couple of generations back on the Apple 4K TV. A lot of big improvements there. You still get the same great UI. The experience there is what you got with previous generations. Also, too, what I've noticed being a previous Apple TV owner is that this Apple TV is actually 20% less in size, less in volume than the previous generation, right? So yeah, I thought the fit and finish was really good. Other things too are, when you get it and all, they really simplified the packaging and that kind of thing too when you order it. But yeah, I thought they really did a good job and a really nice upgrade.
Yeah, I think, we did a little bit of a conversation previously, Jimmy, about the Apple TV device. And I've had another week and a half to use it. and have come away with a few differences in my opinions. I still like the remote. I think it has a nice look. It feels pretty good in the hand. However, once I really started using it, I started to notice a couple of little things that I found non-optimal in my opinion. I'd love it if it had a little dot on like the play pause button, like a lot of remotes do. There is like a concavity to the back button. So there's some minor differences to the buttons, which are really subtle that you start to pick up on after you use it a little more. I don't really love this as a swiping touch area. At first, it seems really cool when you're like trying to zoom forward or back in a thing. But once you start using it a little more consistently, I found it to be less precise than I would have liked. And also too easy to accidentally implement. Like while I'm watching a YouTube video and I want to go back, or I want to look at, say, like give it a thumbs up. And sometimes my thumb will brush it just wrong and it'll like start to rewind the video. So there's a little bit of stuff. I'm sure that I could learn to be more effective with it. I've only probably used it for about 10 hours total. But at first, everything looks gorgeous. And I got to say, like, I really enjoy opening Apple products. Like their packaging is, in my opinion, the best packaging in the business. I just really enjoy it. It's fun to open. And so like, I want to buy the products just so I can open them and then return them. But I'll refrain from that, at least for now, and continue to try to use this and see what I can get out of it.
Since my Apple ID has been delinquent for a couple of years now, we decided, my wife and I, to use her account and to hook up our Apple TV. Setup was actually pretty simple. It asked her to just bring out her phone and was able to detect her phone in her proximity of it. And then she was able to just use it to sign in and automatically connect to the Wi-Fi. That was nice because that was kind of an easy onboarding for her and for us to watch anything on it. I have no idea what it's like to try to use an Apple ID to sign in if you don't have any Apple devices like me. I don't have any personal Apple devices, so I would probably have to be typing everything in using an on-screen keyboard, and I imagine that would be a problem. And if any history with using an Apple ID and how sometimes those get locked out if it's the same as it's been before in past memory, that can be quite a headache. And so I can imagine that in the situation of being able to try to use this. If this is your first Apple device, that could be something that really sours your experience. Just saying. There is an option in there for you to, it will use the same Apple ID in order to purchase apps and stuff like from the stores. And when it does that, it will ask, when initial setup, it will ask if you want to allow it to always use that without any prompting, to prompt you once every 15 minutes, or use it when to give you a 15-minute leeway, or every single time. I would recommend against allowing it to never ask, because that would just prompt you all kinds of nasty things to be necessarily installed or not on your device. But that's choice is up to you. That being said, again, if you don't have another part device to help you with that authentication piece, this again could be very difficult for you. All right, the actual interface itself, I actually liked it. It was extremely slick. It was very responsive. It is as fast as the Fire TV Cube in responsiveness, which is saying something. Both of those devices are really fast, and I love it. It also has the same highlight kind of cursor that the Fire 3D Cube has, which I'm not a fan of. I have to say the Apple one is a little bit easier to see, so it's not as big a deal to me. But it is something that I prefer. Get me highlight things, guys. Just actually put a line around the thing so I can actually see what I'm trying to select, please. All right. We did notice something very weird when we bought a channel for us to try out, we decided to try out Pluto TV because it doesn't require sign in. It just works. So that's one of the reasons we like to test with that. We opened up Pluto TV and we had a little preview trailer of Pluto TV. I kind of understand it gave us a quick, here's what you can do with Pluto TV kind of experience with it. But I hope those are skippable if you don't like those or you're tired of them. I don't know if it happens like after it being off for a while, if it hits again or things like that. I don't know if my apps need trailers. Just saying. Oh, one thing I must say, compared to other devices, the Apple TV probably has the best gaming platform for casual gamers. The Apple Arcade is got a great selection of various games that are very popular from iPhones and iPads, brought to that interface. Many of them playable just with a remote, or you can connect a real controller via Bluetooth to your Apple TV and play with it. And I understand it is extremely popular. Many people like it, and the game selection is really great for those casual games. So absolutely good choice for that.
All right. I agree with several things that you brought up, and like I mentioned in our first look, I don't have an Apple ID. I had planned on setting one up once I got to the point where I absolutely had to, but I never got that far because there's one major problem with this device, with the UI, and I guess Apple devices in general, in the fact that you cannot remove stuff that's located on the home screen. You can only put it into a folder, which is not a solution. It literally hurts my brain to look at stuff that I don't want. I guess that would be considered OCD or whatever. But the fact that I couldn't remove that stuff, I basically turned it off, put it in a box, and I shipped it to Matt. And because of that, there's really not much more I can really say about this device. So I am going to recuse myself and let you guys take it from here.
What?
Bye.
All right, I guess it's to you, Jimmy.
Features of the Apple TV. I mean, there's a lot to say here, right? It, this generation of Apple TV 4K, it's got a better chip. One thing I noticed, now I had the first generation, this is the third generation, and I was coming from the first generation Apple 4K television, and our setup in the living room, we have a TV that's mounted on the wall, and all the audio equipment is off to the right? So we have to run about a 16-foot HDMI cable through the wall and over to the right of the television, to the right as you're looking at it. And the first generation, while it, most of the time it would play pretty well, but occasionally you'd, because when it would go to sleep and wake back up, and because that HDMI cable was so long, right? Sometimes you'd have to walk over, unplug it, and plug it back in, right, to get it to reinitiate with the cable, right? So with this generation Apple TV, I've had it plugged it up since I shipped it. I've yet to have to do that, right? And if it had been the old one, I would have had to at least do that at least 2 or 3 times with the period of time that I've had it. So I've yet to have to do that with this new one. I think it's because of the new chip that's in there, right? It's got more memory on board. And two, not unlike the previous generation Apple TV, but if you are new to Apple TV, it is geared for the Apple ecosystem, right? I mean, that's no big secret there. But like, say, if you own a set of these, AirPods, they connect you don't even have to go to the settings, right? It'll when you put them in your ear, it'll detect that they're there, and it'll say, hey, press this button to connect to your AirPods, and you press the button, and boom, it just works, right? You're right in, right? So so you got little features like that, right? You kind of get rewarded if you're in the ecosystem, right? I guess Apple does, that's good, technology wise, but then it's good also too marketing wise, right?
From those of us from outside the Apple ecosystem, we see that as favoritism, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, and you can still set up a regular standard Bluetooth headset, right? That's not, Apple branded headsets, right? You just have to go to the menu then to do it, right?
No, it's actually really cool. Absolutely really cool. It just feels really bad from somebody who's like doesn't want to do that. So.
But you can still do it. You can still set it up and have it.
It's very cool.
Just like anything else. But it's but you get a little reward there if you are in the ecosystem. So some people look at that as a plus, other people will look at it as a minus.
It's a total plus. I'm just bitter.
And I get that, right? So the fidelity, what I've noticed with the improved chip that's in there now, the fidelity on 4K content is better. You can notice a difference, right? Of course, now it depends on the content, of course, right? I mean, if it's just standard HD, you're probably not going to notice any difference, right? But if it's like some of these Netflix 4K movies, or maybe 4K movies that you might buy on the or rent on the Apple Store, right? Those seem, I can notice a little bit of a difference there. So the fidelity improvement too, at least coming from the first generation Apple 4K, right, to the third, I could notice, a little difference. It's not night and day difference, right? But I can notice a little difference there. I can notice that there's better processing now in this version of the Apple 4K. So overall, I think in the remote, I mean, some of you guys maybe don't care so much for the remote, but what I can tell you, it's a vast improvement from the first generation Apple 4K, because it was a little thin wafer remote that had glass on the front, which I managed to drop and kind of crack the glass on that remote, right? Still works, right? But with this new one, right, it's all aluminum, right? So you don't have to worry about that now. So my opinion, I mean, obviously that first generation Apple 4K is probably in the Johnny Ive era of design with Apple, to where the aluminum is more functional. My opinion, feels a lot better. I think I heard one of you guys complaining about the click wheel on it and all. It works like the click wheel on the old iPods, right? So like to scroll forward in a video, you scroll forward, and then if you want to scroll back, you go back the other way. It scrolls, works really well, right? Maybe it takes a little getting used to and all, but if you're a tech guy at all, it shouldn't take you too long to learn that, right? So so I think it works well, right? And I like too how the Siri remote button's on the side now, right? And that works really well. Another thing too I noticed is that it had metadata into the content, like say if you were to ask it like, who's on screen now, right? It used to do that, but now it gives more information now when you ask Siri that. So they made an improvement there, it seems like. So yeah, just a lot of features, right? A lot of features that they've added in on the Apple on this generation of the Apple 4K.
That's cool.
Mike.
Yeah, thanks. For me, I think there were a few things that I particularly would call out. For one, when I did the setup, kind of like Matt talked about, I did have a MacBook Pro, so I was able to allow with that, but I still had to use my remote to enter like my Hulu password and all of the other stuff. And I will say that was a pain. I found it very annoying. I did learn after the first one that I could use diction through the Siri button and tell it my password letter for letter, and it would do it. So then it became actually easier. So I like that. What I found out was I thought that setup was a little bit more difficult than I would have liked. And then I set up my Fire TV Cube. And even though I've been in the Fire TV ecosystem, it was a way bigger pain in the butt. So I got to give Apple kudos for that setup. Even though it didn't feel optimal to me at the moment, it was way better than Amazon's returning user setup. So, Apple gets the win on that.
If you have an iPhone, it's even easier.
Yeah. And I didn't, your scenario where you just turned it on and said, yeah, here's my iPhone, like boom, everything updates from your account and you don't have to do anything. Like that sounds like a dream come true. That's what I should have had with the Fire TV, because I was similarly going from a previous Fire TV to a new one, and it did not work out that way at all. More about that when we talk about the Fire TV Cube. But overall, I thought it was good. Everything that I really liked at first kind of became I either liked it less or it was outweighed by other things though. So what I would say is like I mentioned, the swiping to fast forward or rewind. I wish that you could just do a continuous motion all the way around it, but you can't. You got to take your thumb back and keep swiping to the right to go fast forward. It feels like it should be a dial. I don't know. There's just all these little things about it that in the end, I didn't really love it. It looks beautiful. The interface is prettier and nicer looking than Amazon's interface, in my opinion. The packaging is better. I think the Amazon device looks a little better, but that's purely opinion. The remote's definitely better here than it is for Amazon. But I also wish that you could talk to Siri without having to push the button. I found that a little bit annoying coming from the Amazon ecosystem, because you just say the wake word and then you talk. So navigating and searching was a little bit easier with the Amazon device.
So it's hard for me to try to understand the value of a device that is basically at the high end of the market, because I'm usually not there. So if this is a device that's usually more than $100, this one's 140. I know it used to be more expensive than that, so it's actually gotten less expensive. So value technically goes up with that. So the question is, how is this compared to other similarly expensive devices? And I think all of those devices can basically do the same thing as far as just functionality for the most part as a $60 device or less. So it's not the functionality, which is what you're paying for here. What you're paying for is the quote unquote better experience of the more luxurious of a device. And is that what this is worth for value? For some people, I think the answer is going to be yes. I think that for some people, this is going to be a really high end value. It's not necessarily what I look for, but I can definitely see the value in it for that case. No, is it for the high value for me? Yeah, it's pretty nice. I'll give it a B grade there.
So from my point of view, I mean, I was coming from a previous Apple device, right? And looking at it from that point of view, right? Yeah, so you're getting a lower price for the device. You're getting a better CPU on this device. You're getting more storage on this device.
That's
right?
big.
So if you're coming from a previous Apple TV generation like I was, it's pretty good value here. Yeah, you know, if this is your first device, or if you're comparing it with other devices on the market, you know, maybe you're not really in the Apple ecosystem too much or something like that, you know, maybe the value is not there, right? But if you are in the Apple ecosystem, and especially if you're coming from like a previous generation Apple TV, yeah, I think there's pretty good value there, right? So you know, you get them better specs for a lower cost, right? You know, so yeah, I think the value is pretty good.
Yeah, from my perspective, the value, like I can't say the value is not there. For me, when I look at a device, this is the tier I'm generally looking at. I have a Fire TV Cube that's in the $130 to $150 range normally. You know, other alternatives that I might consider would be like the NVIDIA Shield, that's 200. So from me, this is good. I think that despite what Matt said, there is a distinct difference in functionality and feature between those $60 devices and these $100+ devices. And that is in responsiveness and the quality of the interaction with the device. So having everything load faster, the cursor move quicker, less latency, less lag, that to me is absolutely worth the increase in price. And I would say if you care about that kind of experience, then it's going to be a good value. You know, the question about value, like what is value? For me, value is, do I feel like I'm getting what I'm paying for? And with this device, I absolutely feel like I'm getting what I'm paying for. So I think it's a great value.
So the question is, would I recommend this thing? Actually, I would recommend this. If somebody comes to me and says, should I get this? They're already thinking about it. And in that case, yeah, it meets your needs. And in certain cases, I would actually say this would be a very good choice device, especially if your goal is to play those Apple Arcade games on your big screen TV. This is like the answer. This is great. If your goal is to just watch streaming shows, then you know, there's something that anything could do, but necessarily, and you're not necessarily into the Apple ecosystem, and you're not really, no, not necessarily in that case. This is you could you can use almost any device to do all those other things, but there's things that this can do better than anything else. In the end, if that's what you're looking for, yeah, absolutely. If you're already asking about it, yes, I recommend it.
Actually, hey guys, sorry, I'm back.
Where'd you go?
I was on the road, and then I remembered I needed this device. I've heard what you guys were saying, but there is not much that this device at the $160 I paid for it can do over an $80 Roku or a $60 Google TV. And the Roku has a far superior remote. I could not in good conscience recommend this to anybody unless they are one of the iOS sheeple that will just buy whatever Apple tells them to buy. A regular non iOS user, no, I would probably steer them. If I gave this to my dad, he wouldn't be able to navigate because of the stupid touchpad. I don't even think he could hold the remote. So yeah, unless you are a diehard iOS fan, no, I do not recommend this. Save the money and buy yourself 3 Google TVs, and get like almost all of the functionality. You just don't get Siri.
and maybe just to rebut Clyde there a little bit. Yeah, in this remote, you don't have to put batteries in it, right? So that, to me, that's a big win, right? So so anyway, but seriously, I was just making a joke there.
Actually, that reminds me, that is also part of my complaint. When the thing dies, you can't use it. I can't just pop batteries into it. It is useless until it's charged. You have to remember to charge it.
Yeah,
Not recommended.
You have to charge it about every 3 months, something like that. I mean, it just depends, right? You know, charge it every 3 months, or you buy batteries forever, right? So, you know, whichever. You know, I guess that's just a matter of opinion there of which one you prefer. But yeah, right. For recommending the Apple TV, yeah, you know, I'm not going to say that, you know, it's for everybody. I mean, really, the recommendation here is if you're in the Apple ecosystem, right? I mean, if you are in the Apple ecosystem, definitely it's a no-brainer, right? I mean, it's a no-brainer. It is the device that you should get, right? You know, it's going to integrate well with all your other devices if you have other Apple devices. So, and the version now, I mean, I think I said on the value, right? The value of it, you're getting more CPU, you're getting more storage, you're getting it at a lower price now. So, yeah, I would recommend it with the caveat that you're in the Apple ecosystem, right? Or you want to convert over to the Apple ecosystem, right? It's definitely a no-brainer there.
Okay. Yeah, for me, I think this kind of comes to me from a value perspective. I think it's got a good value. So at that point, you're looking at which device do I want? The obvious starting place is what ecosystem you happen to be in, as everybody said. If you're in the Apple ecosystem, it's a no-brainer. If you're not, then it's maybe a harder question, in my opinion. If you're in the Amazon, also a no-brainer, go with the Fire TV. If you're not in either of those ecosystems, then it kind of becomes a more ambiguous question, because you kind of have to, if you go into one of those, it makes more sense to commit to one of those, right? So like you said, Clyde, or sorry, Jimmy, if you want to convert to the Apple ecosystem, get an Apple device. But it's good. It looks better, and it works better, in my opinion, than anything else, except for maybe the Fire TV Cube. And in my opinion, they're very neck and neck, very competitive devices. So for my dollar, I'm going with the Apple, or with the Fire TV Cube, because I'm in that ecosystem. And that's what I would recommend to somebody that was not already invested in the Apple ecosystem. But obviously, if you have Apple stuff, you got an iPhone or something, get the Apple TV. I mean, come on. What are you even thinking about? Just go buy it.
Michael Aston. He claims to be interested in technology. He even claims to be an Apple user.
I did have a MacBook Pro.
But when asked if he would recommend the new Apple TV 4K, he answered,
For my dollar, I'm going with the Apple, or with the Fire TV Cube.
He would recommend the Fire TV Cube.
And that's what I would recommend to somebody that was not already invested in the Apple ecosystem.
Likely story. This ad was paid for by the Coalition of Uninformed Voters. No affiliation with Clyde.
Well, that's what we think. But let us know what you think down in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It's absolutely free and helps the channel grow. If you would like to support the channel, feel free to check out the link in the description to our Patreon. And we'll see you next time.
The hardware itself is simple, and it's very simple. It's very crap. This is going to go in the bloopers, isn't it?
Jimmy's laugh right there definitely is.
Okay.